In this video, I'm going to share the one technique that I've used in the vast majority of my aggression cases to enact rapid behavior change in the dogs I'm working with. If you haven't watched the last two videos in this series, please do so, as I've covered why it's crucial to keep things simple and outlined the steps for safe, efficient, and effective strategies in aggression cases. So let's first talk about why aggression happens in the first place. I use this analogy all the time with clients to help them understand why their dog may be displaying aggressive behavior. And so you picture this fuel drum here, and when it's empty, you're not going to get an explosion because there's no gas in that tank. But there's things that can make more fuel happen, and the same thing with dogs, kind of known as distant antecedents or motivating operations are another factor where you're going to get more fuel. So some classic examples are a dog that might be in pain, or a dog that's lacking in enrichment, or maybe the dog's on medication that is making it more hungry and they're more likely to guard their food ball. So we want to address those fuels and take as much fuel out of that tank before we start working on the actual behavior change strategies. But of course you're not going to get an explosion without a match or a spark or a flame. And that's the antecedent. It's the stimulus or the thing in the environment that the dog is feeling threatened by or that they feel they need to respond to. So the more fuel you have in there, the more likely you are to get an explosion, which is the aggressive behavior. So we need to address both things. Now, when I'm working around the sparks or the matches or the antecedents, I want to teach the dog what I want them to do instead when that antecedent is presented. So let's go to a couple of different examples. What do I want the dog to do instead when the mailman shows up on the property and previously the dog bit the mailman? Or what do I want the dog to do instead if somebody's walking by their food bowl while they're eating? So we can reinforce desirable alternative behaviors. And that's the technique I use quite often in many of my cases, teaching the dog what to do instead and reinforcing the dog for making that choice. And of course, while we're working our behavior change strategies, we're setting the dog up for success by setting the environment correctly in order for that dog to succeed. So we'll talk about things like distance and the intensity of the stimulus that we can control to make things successful for the dog. So I'm going to show you the next video here where a client of mine is using differential reinforcement. So she's reinforcing the dog that's closer to her for just noticing the other dog that he would previously attack if she approached, because the owner is the resource. So what do we want the dog to do instead? That's always the question to ask. What are we going to teach the dog to do instead when that match approaches? So if there's that mark, that flame or that spark coming towards the fuel drum, and we've hopefully emptied out many of the things that can create a lot of fuel for that dog, we're going to teach the dog what to do instead. So you'll see in this next video that the owner is marking, so marking the behavior, sort of like clicker training or marking. You're catching the behavior like a flash on a camera. The flash is the picture you're going to get. And so we're capturing that behavior, just noticing the other dog. And then, of course, when we use marker training, the dog's going to look back for reinforcement. They're going to reorient towards the owner and say, I know what that sound means. That means I'm about to get food or reinforcement. And so the dog is learning, if I just stay put, notice the other dog approaching, or person, or mailman, or whatever it is that the dog has the issue with, and then they learn to orient back towards the owner, and we can reinforce that. That's the desirable replacement behavior. So it replaces barking, lunging, snarling, snapping, growling, and biting. Now at the same time with this technique, this one simple technique, is that classical conditioning is happening as well. We're changing the dog's association of when that other dog approaches, or person, or mailman, or hand near the food bowl, something good's about to happen. So both classical and operant conditioning are happening at the same time, and it's when the other dog approaches that predicts the food is about to happen. So let me play the next video for you, and you can follow along on how she's marking the dog for, again, noticing the other dog approaching, which typically would have created an explosion before.
What you looking at? Yes. 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 Steady. Ready? Ready. Find it. Great girlie. He's my good boy, huh? You're a good boy. Yes. 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 Good daddy. Great, Daddy. Good job. Yes, Pen. Excellent. Fantastic choice. Good boy. All right, now we're going to wait. Yes. Listen. Should we wait? Just wait. Yes.
So as you can see in that video, she's reinforcing the dog that's next to her for just remaining stationary, but also just when the dog notices the other dog approaching and just looks back, that's what's going to pay off. So it's a much more desirable choice for that dog because they're going to get reinforcement rather than having to go after the other dog. And at the same time, we're changing associations with that match or that antecedent where the other dog approaching predicts the goodies are about to happen. So really we want the other dog to look forward to that dog approaching because classical conditioning is happening there. Now you may already be doing something similar in your training or adding this to existing strategies already in place. What we can see is that many of the additional recommendations we give to clients may not be necessary in our cases. I might suggest brainstorming for a bit to think about maybe some past cases you've had where streamlining the training plans may have had an impact on client participation and overall success. As always, my mantra is that it's best to keep it simple. So in the Aggression in Dogs Master Course, I also discuss the fine-tuning that might be necessary with this type of technique and whether we might layer in other operant or classical conditioning strategies. So make sure you click on the link under the video and put your name on the early bird waitlist. Everybody on the early bird waitlist will get access to the registration link the night before the program launches to the public. In the next video, I'll be highlighting more details about how I work aggression cases from start to finish, and even more techniques to ensure a complete plan for all the different types of aggressive behaviors you may encounter. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.